My name is Rose. I'll be speaking to you today about the clean and sustainable waste processing solution known as the Recycle-Tech pyrolysis plant. This innovative technology is brought to us by Dr. Mortadha Baubecker, who holds a PhD in Management and Information Systems. Dr. Baubecker has collaborated with executives worldwide from South America to Africa. It is my pleasure to introduce him and his product to you today.
مرحب، السلام عليكم. اسمي دكتور مرتضي محجوب بابكر السيد. تخرجت من أمريكا واشنطن بدرجة الماستر ديجري والدكتوراه، ولي موارد متخصصة في الآتي.
So, what can the Recycle-Tech pyrolysis plant do for you? Imagine living across the street from the local landfill. The odor, the smoke, the noise. The air becomes gray, polluted, and hard to breathe with the smell. Seeing the tons of burning waste worries you, not just for your neighborhood, but for the whole community. What if there were a clean, less expensive way to not only cut down on pollutants and waste, but also reuse and produce fuel from any kind of waste? What if you didn't need to separate and sort what can be recycled and what cannot be? The Recycle-Tech pyrolysis plant uses heat recycling technology to not only keep energy and costs down, but to also produce viable energy sources as it keeps the environment clean. The process is simple. Pyrolysis uses indirect heat application to break down waste into usable products. This process allows the chemical composition of the waste to change without incinerating it. By melting the waste down into usable compounds instead of burning it, the plant doesn't emit smoke, toxins, or carbides. Instead, the process yields renewable gases, energy-packed oil and sludge, and thermal energy. This excess thermal energy is then recovered and can then be converted into electricity using a cogeneration plant, which powers the Recycle-Tech plant to continue processing waste. The Recycle-Tech pyrolysis plant can process up to 100 tons of any waste each day with no need to sort it. From municipal to industrial waste, the plant can take any kind of fuel. What's even more impressive is that the plant leaves no carbon footprint. Incineration plants that process up to 100 tons of waste per day emit smoke, toxins, sulfur oxides, larger amounts of nitrogen oxides, carbides, and even hydrochloric acid. In contrast, the Recycle-Tech pyrolysis plant emits no smoke, no carbides, no sulfur oxides, and no HCl. All products of the process are usable fuel sources, and there's less product left over. Incineration plants produce large quantities of unusable material left over after the waste is burned, and that leftover material goes straight to a landfill. Recycle-Tech produces less solid and liquid material overall, and all of it is reusable. The Recycle-Tech pyrolysis plant produces three main byproducts: oil, sludge, and heat. All three of these products are recyclable as different types of fuel. Oil makes up 20 to 35% of the byproduct, and the oil can be used to power small industrial machinery unrefined. If refined, the oil retains the quality and uses similar to bunker C and diesel fuel oil, such as powering heavy equipment and vehicles. Despite being recycled, this oil boasts a calorific value of over 10,800 kcal per kilogram of oil, which is 113.4% higher than that of crude oil. This means the recycled oil lasts significantly longer as fuel than crude oil can by producing energy more efficiently. 5 to 8% of the pyrolysis byproduct is sludge or ash that can serve as a substitute for coal and some asphalt uses. This sludge retains at least 8,300 kcal per kilogram versus the usual calorific value of 7,000 to 8,000 kcal per kilogram that coal has, up to 118.6% of the energy that coal produces when burned as fuel. The rest of the product is thermal energy, ranging from 42 to 75% of the output, depending on the waste chemical composition before it's processed by the Recycle-Tech pyrolysis plant. Higher concentrations of synthetic waste yield a larger quantity of recovered oil, so the amount of thermal energy produced may vary. This thermal energy is recaptured by the plant in the form of electrical energy, which then powers the plant and produces more energy for a self-sustaining operation, no machinery operators required. How Recycletech's pyrolysis plant works looks like this. First, the waste stream material is filtered through rotation and magnetization, which remove rocks and metals from the waste before it enters the recycling chambers and furnace. The filtered materials are also recyclable. Rocks can be disposed, and the filtered metals can be smelted or recycled as scrap. Next, the pneumatic waste crusher cuts and crushes the waste material into 30-centimeter pieces to ensure the transfer conveyor feeds the waste into the furnace properly. The plants use minimal resources and time, requiring no waste sorting or manpower to accomplish the process. By loading appropriate quantities of waste into the furnace automatically, the transfer conveyor keeps the furnace from being overloaded or halting production. After the feedstock moves to the conveyor, it is compressed and distributed into multiple separate inlets. The appropriate portions of waste enter the pyrolysis furnace. The furnace then breaks the waste down in an endothermic reaction, later producing liquid oil and solid sludge, and releasing the heat that in turn powers the plant. The pyrolysis furnace is composed of a heat supply apparatus and a screw unit, which supply low heat, about 300 to 400 degrees Celsius, to break down the waste compounds into smaller molecules. The process leaves no harmful compounds like nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, dioxins, carbon dioxide, or hydrochloric acid in the resulting oil, sludge, or heat and gas. What's more, the non-burning property of pyrolysis prevents any methane and leachate from being produced, meaning noxious odors are virtually eliminated in the broken down products. The furnace transfers the gaseous matters into the heat exchanger to be rapidly frozen. Then, at the same time, the liquid material left over in the furnace and the newly frozen material are transferred into the compressor to cool and separate into toxin-free oil and sludge. All of this might sound too good to be true. So, what kind of cost does this clean waste processing plant incur? Firstly, a Recycletech plant can cost from 10 to 50% less than a traditional incineration plant. No smoke reduction facilities needed, and only requires about 1.5 acres of land. Combine that with the fact that it generates profit just by operating to create sellable fuel options, and the facility has the potential to pay for itself. 1 ton of waste treated through incineration costs approximately $86, whereas the same amount treated by Recycletech costs around $24 total, partially due to lower manpower cost. When constructing an incineration plant, the process can take up to 2 years. Recycletech can be built in 8 to 10 months, approximately 3 times more quickly. There are far fewer worries about community reaction and municipal interference, because it is clean and only produces fuel sources. There's very little to clean up or complain about.